So welcome everyone. My name is Katie Porter and I am Executive Director of Inlandia Institute, a literary and cultural arts. We're literally a literary and cultural arts nonprofit based in inland Southern California. And I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for a conversation with Inlandia Institute Board of Directors member and Blacklandia Steering Committee Chair, Lisa Henry. A little bit about our Blacklandia events series. This was initiated in 2020 in response to the murder of George Floyd at the hands of the police on May 25th of that year. As an organization centered around the power of words, one that values speaking up and speaking out, Inlandia made a renewed and public commitment to providing a space for people in the Black community to come together. And from that arose a Black-led Black Voices Steering Committee and a new series of events, Blacklandia. Before we begin, Inlandia Institute respectfully acknowledges and recognizes our responsibility to the original and current caretakers of this land, water, and air, the Cahuilla, Tongva, Luiseno, and Serrano peoples, and all of their ancestors and descendants, past, present, and future. Today, the Inlandia region is home to many Indigenous peoples from all over the world, and we express our gratitude to them for allowing us the opportunity to live and work on these homelands. And now just a few housekeeping notes. We want you to know that closed captioning is available for this event via the CC icon on the lower part of your screen. Also, please note that this is, this is not a view-only presentation. Today, it is a community discussion. So while we are being recorded, if you have any questions as we go along, please either type them into the chat or raise your hand. But please do keep yourself muted until we call on you. So at this time, please welcome our host, Lisa Henry. Welcome, Lisa. And unmute.
Hi, I am Lisa. I'm Lisa Henry. I have been a board member of Inlandia and recently in the last few years been part of the steering committee of the Blacklandia group. And these programs are intended to give community a platform, a voice, encouragement, and support. I was really excited to propose this community discussion on a film that I had been eagerly awaiting for some time, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And I'm very, very glad to have you all here. I just want to welcome you and say thank you for attending. But I can't really begin the conversation about a film that has so much to say about mourning and commemoration and difficult losses in community. I can't really begin the program without expressing my just deep sadness and dismay over the news that I know a lot of you have been grappling with this week, the death at hands of police of Tyree Nichols earlier this month, and the horrifying video that has recently been released to the public, another in the too long list of images of Black death in this country. And I just want to express my sadness and obviously my condolences to his family, his community, but also to acknowledge that I am not, one of these new critics that's just like looking at the movie and what frame did this happen and when did that happen and let's look at the lighting. Um, Pop culture, film, art, video, music, it happens in a context. And the context for this conversation on this day really does include um, the very real mourning, not only of the proposed star that would have been the star of this film, Chadwick Boseman, but all the Black and Brown people who have perished needlessly at the hands of the state. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. Obviously, there's a lot to dig into with this film, which I have both positive and some mixed emotions about the film as a total piece. But I hope we will all feel comfortable sharing our responses to the film and all your responses to the issues and the ideas that are presented, things that may have built on what happened in the first film and things that are quite different. So with that, I just want to get us started and kind of take a little bit of a litmus test, just to share completely honestly. I am a movie buff. I love going to the movies. I grew up going to the movies. I go to the movies with friends. I used to go to the movies by myself if nobody wanted to see what I wanted to see. That wasn't going to stop me. I love film. But in the last couple of years, let me just tell you, for somebody who would have seen this movie the first weekend it opened, I only just saw it last month. Hadn't been to the movies, to the theater in person since before the pandemic. I've seen a number of movies since the pandemic, became such a horrible, uh, oppressive and saddening sort of pall over our lives, but they've all been drive-ins. So it's a very different experience. This was the first movie in a very long time that I saw at the theater, and I'm glad I went. But I'm wondering, for all of you, maybe some people are here for the discussion and they haven't seen the movie. Has everybody seen the movie? Just curious, you can raise your hand. Have you seen the movie? Can people hear me? Anybody see the movie? Okay, good. A couple of hands. And so it looks like some people haven't seen the movie. So be not dismayed. I'm not going to do major spoilers. I'm not going to be like, the Easter egg and scene 5, blah, blah, blah. Like, we want you to go or see it when it's streaming and enjoy it. This conversation isn't about like, ruining all the surprises. But I just was curious if people had seen the movie, and if maybe it might have been the first film they had seen in person since the pandemic. Does anybody want to share about that? Raise your hand and unmute yourself, please. Anybody?
Well, for me, it was my first movie, like you, back in the theater. I've gone to the drive-in, but I had not been inside a movie theater since 2019. So it was a big event for me.
2020 maybe?
Yeah, well, the end of 2019. I don't know that I went to anything at the beginning of 2020 before the world fell apart.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, okay. So you even beat me because I saw a couple things in the winter 2020. Knives Out. I thought that was fun. And, a bunch of just crazy things when you think, oh, I didn't think that would be my last movie for 3 years, just random things. But what I did really enjoy, even though I didn't go with friends, I really enjoyed that communal aspect of, when you first see the Marvel logo, and then it's different because even from the very beginning, the film is acknowledging the passing of Chadwick Boseman, and it's different than the beginning of all the other Marvel films. And just as a community communal experience, I that was meaningful to me. So I just wanted to share that. Um, Want to kind of get people a little bit involved in a discussion. I don't have like a 10-page paper that I want to read you about my thesis about Black Panther. This is a discussion, right? So I really want hoping that everybody will feel comfortable to share their experience and what they thought of the film. Oh, Romaine, thank you so much. Romaine, would you like to unmute yourself and just share a comment? Romaine.
Yes, it was the first movie that I had seen since the pandemic, and I didn't go when it first was released. I was really nervous about going to the movies.
I can understand that.
It was,
Yeah, I can totally understand
happy.
that.
I was so happy that I went on so many levels, and it was the perfect movie to see to break the pandemic, to continue on that narrative. And I'm always leery about.
Oh, Romaine, I'm not sure.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Now I can. Yeah, now I can.
Okay. I'm always leery about sequels to films, but this one didn't disappoint me at all. It was wonderful. So that's it.
Oh, well, thanks so much for sharing that. First of all, it was, you may have had a little bit of anxiety, like, okay, I'm stepping back into this kind of public space I haven't been to since before the pandemic. And now here I am at a sequel. Maybe it's not going to be as good as the original. Maybe it's, I don't know, disappointing. And you had a really good experience. I really did feel, especially in the beginning of the film, that it was kind of, I don't know, it emotionally made a lot of sense to me that this was like the first one that I saw in the theater, because the whole idea of like what had been lost and what people in the film were mourning, what maybe I had been mourning in a societal sense. I mean, there's been so much loss through the COVID pandemic, loss in my friends and family, loss for the entire country, for the entire world. And in a way, even though I didn't expect it, sitting down to that communal experience and having the film really acknowledge this tremendous loss that we've all been through, that was very powerful to me. And I thought it was done in a very respectful way, not exploitative, but it was cinematic and very moving to me. And I actually didn't expect that. I was just like, I want to see the Black Panther movie. I've already waited a month and a half. I want to see it. Let me just get myself together so I can go see it. I think I'm going to enjoy it. So I didn't expect that bit of catharsis. But that was very satisfying to me. I'm wondering for other people, what were some of the other themes that really resonated with you? I would say for the first half of the movie, there were two things: that collective mourning, and also, oh, Richard, would you like to unmute yourself and comment?
Sure,
Please.
yes. Can you hear me okay?
Now I can hear you. Yeah, please.
Okay, okay. Well, I enjoyed the movie on many levels. First, the director's ability to bounce back with class and really make a good film in the midst of what happened with the loss, and the pandemic and all these things. Now, but to move forward though, I really, really enjoyed his ability to use the Marvel mythology and the canon as a point of departure, because so often it's easy for films to just stick with the comic book story and not deviate too much. Because a Black Panther really is not a super major character that Marvel began with. Yes, it was Spider-Man, Hulk, and everybody else. So I really liked how he just developed so much and added so many layers to the story. Black and brown solidarity, fighting each other, when there's a major colonizer in the mix trying to exploit, just so much. So I saw it 3 times in the theater.
Oh,
wonderful
wow.
film. And it's just great film. That's all I have to say. I'm not going to talk a whole lot. Okay.
No, but that's okay. I'm glad to hear your comments, and hopefully people will feel like they can kind of chime in. Romaine, you had some thoughts about some of the other themes in the movie. Do you want to share those?
Yes, I get so giddy about when we have an intelligent superhero quote unquote movie that really focuses on not just the psychology of the superhero and the villain, which a lot of them do, but also that highlights things that are very
Oh,
real.
Romaine, can you repeat what you just said? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let me put my camera on too. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay.
Things that highlight politics and oh my gosh, the colonizers and the role of being colonized and the fear and the sorrow. It captured it so well. There's a point of
What did you think about the I don't want to say clash, but the let's say the connection and the confrontation maybe between the two non-white cultures in the film?
I
How did you
love
think
it.
that was handled?
I thought it was very symbolic of what happens now, even
Yeah,
when you
very
have
timely.
yes, 2 oppressed. Well, one wasn't oppressed, but both were in fear of the colonizers because they knew the nefarious ways in which they could behave. But that didn't make them want to unify. It made both of them even afraid of each other. And that happens all the time. That's why we're just now with George Floyd having some kind of unity when it comes to oppression and speaking out. But there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of mistrust because you always, just like in the film, you don't know, just because you're a part of a group doesn't mean that you're loyal to that group. And you don't know who's your real friend and who might be an enemy. And they captured that very well too. And the anger and the resentment. And it was just wonderfully handled.
And also the concept of then what are allies, right? So
Yes.
who are your allies? You're part of one group. Maybe your identity traverses a number of groups.
Yes.
But then what is the nature of allyship, and how does that really work in the world where, well, okay, yeah, it's a superhero movie, but it's also about imperialism and harnessing resources and geopolitical power.
Yes.
It's about politics. One thing that I've really enjoyed both in the first film and this film is how that's on the table. It's a fantasy. I understand that. People are not cats, and people cannot fly through the air, and countries can't go invisible. But this is a very realistic movie in terms of the themes. And I think that's, if I want to say, brave of Marvel, because they don't have to do that and they can still make $700 million.
Yeah.
So it's not brave in terms of like you're risking your life, but it is a statement that I think make these two movies, for whatever their flaws, a bit more substantial to me than some of the other films in the MCU. I don't know what anybody else may have a comment about that, or what you might think about that. please unmute yourself and please jump in. Does anybody have a feeling about that? About please.
Yeah, I was so impressed that the director was able to negotiate with the Marvel powers that be to have a movie where there's a triad of 3 strong women of color leading the stories. I just, I was at the drive-in.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing the last thing you said. Okay.
Yeah, it just started raining really loudly here.
Oh.
I was at
You
the
saw it the
drive-in
weekend
with
that it
my
was just
son,
pouring in Riverside.
and he didn't think it at all odd that there would be these strong women as protagonists in the story, which was another thing which I found just amazing, that these younger generations coming up won't even question those sorts of things. But so I just wanted to put that in as well, that
that's a very,
Marvel let it happen. And it
Well,
probably
it's
had a
a
lot to do
very
with the
strong
director being
theme,
able to do so well with the first movie, that he had the cachet, the power to say, I want to pivot the story to elevate.
And that whole, well, the gender equity, I think, that's shown in Wakanda is really, I mean, maybe for an older person like myself, it's a little startling. But you know, when I grow up, I'm going to be Dora Milaje, General. As soon as I saw that character in the first film, I was just so impressed. It wasn't like, oh, here we're going to do something and look at this general. It was just the characters totally integrated into the story. It's not like, oh, look at what we're doing. It made sense. All the other characters reacted in concert. It didn't seem to me like a superficial, oh, we're going to try to make a diverse film and we're going to give everybody a line and we're just going to do this because look how great it is to be part of Marvel and we get it. No, it was actually really considered, well written. Nikea's character, Okoye's character, and you know, in that film and certainly in this film, oh my gosh, Queen Ramonda. Oof, yes, I will walk through fire for her. And you know, her moral stance, I think, was really strong. I really appreciated the way gender was sort of followed through with, because I really do think that it has its roots in the first movie in this film. Does anybody else want to comment? I really don't want to be the only voice here. I would love this to be a conversation, to hear what people's thoughts are. And I know some people here haven't seen the film, so please don't worry. I'm not gonna spoil it. But maybe if you have questions or you know just want to share maybe about the first movie. Yes, James, please.
As was mentioned, one of the large themes was grief and mourning. And I feel like, you know, the opening scene gives us such a shock that when the Marvel credits come up, you're still kind of left in awe at that moment. And so I didn't go see it right when it first came out, but the audience in the theater with me, like you could hear a pin drop. Everything was so silent, because we're like shocked and like, what do you say in that moment? And then from there, they show the grieving process, which I think for a lot of us, was healing, not only because of the loss of Chadwick Boseman and that experience. I know myself, I've written like a couple poems about his passing. So kind of having that ceremony, not just for the Black Panther, but also in honor of Chadwick, was
Right, for the man that we
mhm.
lost, for the artist that we lost. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as we move on through the film, you know, it comes up more like, how do you handle grief and how do you make the right decision for healing in a healthy way versus an unhealthy way.
So, I mean, absolutely, James. Very psychological. I think quite deep for essentially an MCU movie. You know, I felt that theme, that trajectory through the film, was very meaningful to me, and I really appreciated the care that was taken in devoting that much of the film to it. I really, really did. And I think even more so than if I had, let's say, waited and just seen it at home, it still would have hit me hard. But in the theater, that was really palpable. And I felt that people in my theater were moved. I don't know if anybody else felt that way. Richard, I know you had a comment. You had your hand up. Did you want to add? And then I think Felicia, did you have your hand up? If you wanted to add, please go ahead.
Sure. I saw the first movie and tears came to my eyes because I saw it with my son in the movie theater. It was like watching Superman and Bruce Lee.
How old is your son, if you don't mind me asking?
12 years old. So we saw it, both films. And the feeling of, I mean, I would feel good inside when I would see Superman on the screen or Bruce Lee doing his moves. But my emotional response was totally unexpected when I saw Black Panther. And I saw all those Black folks, all the nuances, all the layers of character development. Because Black folk, historically in film, haven't been like used a lot. Or if they're used, they're killed first, you know, in the first 10 minutes. Also, I really like how they took a second tier hero in the comics, Black Panther, and elevated him on the screen as a first tier hero, because in the comics, a Black Panther fought second tier villains. He didn't fight the folks that Hulk or Spider-Man fought. I mean, you know, he didn't. He fought these people who were really, I guess, second tier, or I don't know, but to see them also take a first tier hero like the Submariner and redefine him.
And so do you want to say a little bit about that character? I am not a comic book head. I don't know. I didn't know this from the comics, just from things that I have read since Marvel has had this like juggernaut of like all these films.
Okay.
So if you want to just talk about the Submariner, and do you think he's a villain? Do you think he's a adversary? How do you see him?
In the comics, he was a hero, almost like an anti-hero when he fought the Fantastic Four and the Hulk, but his origin in the film was completely revamped to make him relatable and relevant, you know, to an audience of color. You know, it was just so original, and it was just the culture, the role of females in his crew, you know, fighting side by side. I mean, it's an original. It is just as original as Coogler had developed Killmonger, who was basically
for the first movie. Yeah, I thought Killmonger was kind of such an interesting choice. And that
Yeah.
really made that movie so complicated. And I
Exactly,
have to
yeah.
say, I understand the ending, but I kind of wish Killmonger were still around, because I think those conversations are still around, and
Sure.
that his
Yes.
character really um, gave a bit of a platform for that sort of intra-racial conversation, and diversity of experience, which we
Exactly.
don't often get in film.
Sure.
I didn't mean to cut you off though, Richard. If you had more of your comment, please go ahead.
No, I'm just, I want everybody else, because I know that everybody else has something great to say about the
Felicia,
film.
did you have
So,
a comment? I think.
Sure. I would just build on what James had mentioned earlier. And I have actually written and published about Black Panther. And my colleague who's here also,
Oh,
Derek
Felicia, I'm
Green.
sorry, you just cut out. You've written about the film? You've written about
Yes,
what?
I've written about Black Panther
Uh-huh.
in a book called Why Wakanda Matters. And I did a chapter on kind of the psychological unifying that the movie did
I
with
saw a short clip of you on YouTube talking about the book, but then I was
okay.
trying to find the book. I couldn't get it in time for the discussion. Please talk a little bit about your essay, please, if you wouldn't mind.
So the essay is called Cross My Heart and Hope to Die in Wakanda. And it's part of a book, Why Wakanda Matters, that has several essays about people's writings about Black Panther, the movie, and the effect that it had psychologically, for the most part, on people of the diaspora. And so my essay really talked about the verbal and nonverbal things that we took away from the movie. So the Wakandan salute, of course, and then people chanting, Wakanda forever, and yelling out that as a loyalty call.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I heard James saying, I recognized that I had a very similar experience in the theater with the second movie, with Wakanda Forever, at the beginning when they were doing the tribute to Chadwick Boseman, and when it was done, complete silence. And I thought, one, that it was just the most appropriate way to honor him. And I thought it was very beautifully done. But two, I also realized that that was probably the most palpable feeling I've had in a movie theater, if not in my entire life. It was just that strong. And I just don't ever remember having a feeling like that while sitting in a room full of strangers. And so I think, again, that was very well done. And it made me think about how what I wrote about the first movie was this superhero, this Black superhero that we had never seen before, and how it brought together so many people in ways that we had not been brought together before. So we're unified. We're saying Wakanda forever to strangers that we don't know in the grocery store, and you're seeing athletes do the Wakandan salute. And so we're all kind of connected by this thing, and it brought a people together, right? And then we lose Chadwick Boseman. And so you've got all of this that was brought together. And then now we all have a different experience. We have this one that we were rejoicing and we're joyful, but now we're all having to mourn together. And it's almost as if someone took away that thread that had unified us. And so when I saw the way that they started the second movie, I was very pleased. And I thought that was so appropriate to help us continue the healing that we needed to do from losing our beloved king.
I think that, yeah, continuing the acknowledgement, the process of mourning, and the healing, and not shortchanging that. I know a lot of folks I've talked to just personally, a major criticism has been, oh, but it's so long. Why is it so long? Well, it's so long because Marvel had to add like 16 other characters and talk about, the MCU and this and that, and set up for 2 other movies. Fine, that's their business. But I think the amount of time and consideration given to the passing of Black Panther and Chadwick was really important. And I'm glad that they did not cut that in order to give us maybe 6 more characters that they probably could have shoved in there. I want to make sure everybody's had a chance to, express some thoughts on these themes. I don't know everybody that's here, but please, if you want to have a comment about any of the themes we've mentioned, or even if you have a reaction that's different. I'm not trying to call, this isn't a classroom. I'm not going to call people by name, but I really do want people to feel like they can contribute their thoughts either about the first movie or the second movie or the continuum. Does anybody want to just share some thoughts? Anybody? Janine, I don't want to call on you as if you were in class, but something that's super interesting that I'm really a big fan of yours. You've been in the film industry and writing about film for many years. People may not know that before being part of Inlandia, Janine has worked for Cinefex magazine and is really quite a sophisticated person that has been part of the film industry and contributed to a whole issue about Marvel and a deep dive into the Black Panther, the first movie. I'm really curious. I mean, Janine and I are friends. I haven't talked to you really since you saw the movie this week. What are some of your thoughts, Janine?
The issue of
Hello.
Cinefix, can you hear me?
Now I can. Now I
Okay.
can.
I think there might be a slight time delay too. I don't know. We'll hold our breath right, and hopefully we can stay connected. The issue of Cinefix you're referring to was an all Marvel issue and one of my favorite issues to work on. It covered all of the Marvel universe, but that was when Black Panther came out.
All
So
of the major characters, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so that was one of our feature articles. What I admire about, I have to say a couple of things. First of all, the theme of processing grief. When I saw what you had written up, Afrofuturism, Black exceptionalism, the other things, and then grief, I didn't really know what to expect as to how that was going to be dealt with or discussed or handled. And it was so powerful and so beautiful. Chadwick Boseman was so special. There was something about him. There was an incandescence when he was on the screen, and you felt that was true about him as a human. So that's one of those losses that we really felt personally. We felt it off screen, but then within the story, it's felt too. So I thought that was a brilliant and beautiful way to address it and help us process it and help everyone involved process it. I loved seeing how complex it was. I loved seeing that it doesn't begin or end. It's nice when it can end at a year, and I love the ceremony and ritual around that. But in truth, it's a very ragged journey. I thought it was wonderful to see how people.
It's never as smooth or
No,
could
it's
even
never
be as linear, right?
exactly
As they
right.
present maybe in a piece of art like the film.
Yes,
But I
yes,
do
yes.
think that it was helpful. But in real life, it's, oof, let me tell you,
Yeah,
not a straight path. And
definitely not. And that we have to find new things in ourselves. We have to figure out how to step into new roles that we didn't really ever want to have to step into, and find new ways of
even
making
think we
things
could
right.
maybe. Yeah.
So that was beautiful. I was just struck with how powerful that opening was. But one of the things I admired about the first, and really admire
Thank you,
about
Janine. Thank you,
Wakanda.
Janine.
Oh dear, can you hear me? I'll wrap it
No,
up. I'm probably talking too much
No,
anyway.
no. It's just no. What happens is I think there is a delay,
Yeah,
and then sometimes
agree.
I'm thinking she's talking, I can't
Is
hear
she?
her,
Yeah,
but it comes
exactly. It's
back.
like on the news where it's like, okay, over to you, Lisa. We should do something like that. The other thing I was going to remark on is the visual beauty of the movie and of the universe they've created. That technology is, you can't take your eyes off it. The color palette, the production design, it's rich. Everywhere you look, it is rich and fascinating. And the matter-of-fact way everyone who is used to that technology in that beautiful world deals with it and experiences it is also part of what makes it so interesting and cool. But I can't get enough of it visually. That's one of my favorite things about it. So just a couple of thoughts.
And I really did learn a lot reading through the deep dive profile in that Cinefex issue, because they really talked about building the world, right? And what it takes to build this kind of a world cinematically. And, you know, okay, I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world. And maybe at some point during this talk, I might even mute myself unknowingly. But when you start to think of what it takes to make a world on film, that's just hard. That's just hard, full stop. But then taking into consideration the idea that the filmmakers, the whole crew, the production staff, Ryan Coogler, were working with concepts that really haven't been explored that much, let's say, in mainstream film, maybe in speculative fiction, maybe in, you know, with artists who are not really on, let's say, a national platform. But in this way, with this type of budget, to say, we're going to be using a concept of Afrofuturism, which doesn't just mean Black people and robots. Afrofuturism isn't just putting Black people in space or people of African descent using some technology. The concept they were going for was equally cultural heritage and advanced technology.
Yes.
And
Yes.
all the possibilities of the future,
Right.
as well as the acknowledgement and the deep roots in cultural specificity. So I thought it was so interesting, because I think oftentimes that those kinds of ideas get really flattened out, and it's like, oh, okay, so yeah, no, we're going to have a Star Wars movie and it's going to be multicultural, so we just put Black people in it.
Yeah.
That's not what we're
Exactly
talking about with Black Panther
Yeah.
and with Wakanda. It's you know, so it's really a cultural civilization that is specific
Mhm.
and continues, right? Continues.
Mhm.
Doesn't end with
That's
Earth and
right.
Hut. Doesn't end with Earth and Huts,
Right.
but it also doesn't dismiss their own heritage.
No, that is so beautifully put. Keeping the interweaving of the past and the heritage and the
Oh,
ancestors
the delay.
with
What are you saying?
with the present, and
Say
then
it again.
knowing,
Just say it again.
I said the interweaving of cultural heritage, the past and place too, really acknowledging the
Oh,
riches
absolutely.
of the
Absolutely. And
place.
that they had like 6 different segments
Yeah.
of Wakanda, the built city, that you had both dirt roads and skyscrapers.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Shuri is complete, you know, next level scientist,
Right.
but she's not only wearing like metal, you know,
Right.
like it's like there's a kind of holistic, um, a holistic vision that doesn't cut off the past, which
Yeah.
I think is a part of that Afroism that not everybody talks about
Yeah.
in an effort to be like part of science fiction or part of, you know, the
Right.
future.
I love that
One of
character. I love
the
Shuri.
production designers talking about the city. Oh, she's amazing. Yeah, sure. I don't know if she's gonna be the Black Panther forever, but she's amazing.
Yeah.
Something from the article that I thought was so on point, they're saying, well, it's got to be this combination. It's like, you go to Rome and on one block it's the Colosseum, and 2 blocks later there's a high fashion boutique, glass and steel.
Yeah.
That's the Roman culture from beginning, or from a beginning to the current. You would never think, oh, Rome's not going to have the Colosseum. No, that's not contemporary.
That's right.
Why wouldn't it be the same for cultures of African descent? I don't know. So
Yes.
I just thought it was a really interesting article, and I really appreciate you lending
You're
it to me.
very
Jane.
welcome. I'm glad that came in handy. Thank you for your
Oh,
interest.
absolutely. Richard, you had another comment. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand before. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to just bounce back to Dr. Stewart's essay that she wrote, because 2 things that she said grabbed me, and I'd like her to comment, like elaborate on that a little bit more in person. One of them, she mentioned in her essay that in Wakanda, Black excellence is the mainstream. Black excellence is the mainstream. And then she also mentioned that the saying, "cross my heart and hope to die," has typically been used to convince others that one is telling the truth. Wakanda is the truth to many in diasporic souls. 2 really powerful statements. If she can just really comment on that in light of our discussion, I'd appreciate that.
Please,
read that,
Doctor,
Richard.
if you would mind.
No, I don't mind at all. Richard, read that second quotation again. I make sure I
Sure,
understood what I
sure.
said.
Okay. It said, the saying, "cross my heart and hope to die," has typically been used to convince others that one is telling the truth. Wakanda is the truth to many diasporic souls. At least in their shared fantasy, it is their truth.
Right. Okay. So I'll go back to the first. Black excellence is the mainstream in Wakanda. And what that really just means is, and I'm a product of an HBCU and I work at a HBCU, and that is our normal everyday, day-to-day interactions is Black excellence. But there are so many people in the world who are surprised by the fact that people of color can be intelligent and intellectual and all of these things. But in Wakanda, they don't have to work extra hard to prove that they're excellent at anything or that they're worthy of anything. It's just the way they live. It's the expectation. It's just like with my family, for example, all of my father's brothers and sisters have doctorate degrees. And so college education was always just something we did. No one had to drill it into me. No one had to, to do anything. It's always what I've expected. It was never a question whether or not I would be educated. That was just our norm. In Wakanda, Black excellence just in general is the norm. And because those people all happen to be of color, then it becomes Black excellence, but it's the norm. There's nothing surprising. They're not surprised by each other. No one's surprised that Shuri is as intelligent as she is. It just is. And that's just how they live. And so that's what I mean by that. And a lot of people just won't understand or accept that in the world that we live in. And then the other part, saying that Wakanda is the truth. And it's just that, again, living the truth, being able to walk in spaces that say, this is who we are, and we don't have to explain it to anyone.
I think she froze.
Maybe frozen.
Yeah,
Maybe
we can return.
should I, can she still get a chat? Can I ask her to rejoin?
Yeah, I think she's probably still got her, she's still there, but she's experiencing some connectivity issues. But
I'm curious in terms of what people felt about the movie's stance on global responsibility. Does anybody have a comment about that? I thought that was kind of interesting. Again, for a Marvel movie where, now I can't remember, a few Marvel movies back, there was a point at which one of the Avengers takes a whole city and just kind of dumps it down to the earth, and presumably everybody is killed, and there's would be tremendous PTSD in New York City. Like, these things just kind of happen because superheroes have to be doing these amazing things and moving stories across. But I think the global kind of responsibility issues raised in the Black Panther movies are a bit different than what tragically happened to Sokovia, if anybody saw that film. And anybody want to comment on that? Sort of the global responsibility, or the themes of global politics? I know that's a tough one. It's not fun to talk about, but I just wondered if anybody had thoughts about it. Please, Richard, please.
Sure. That concept is being one who has read like tons of comic books and been movies and just saw them all. That's a fairly new concept, because in the superhero movies before that, when they fought people and did damage, it was just business as usual. But I think that some cross-pollination happened with DC and Marvel with that concept, because in Dawn of Justice with Superman, and he was doing damage, and he was held accountable. It happened in Marvel also, so I think it's a fairly new concept that is emerging, that people are still trying to figure out. I mean, how can you do all this crazy stuff and cause fires and damage in the name of saving people, but you're doing damage at the same time? So I would probably expect the new Captain America film, New World Order, to really maybe expand on that, because you can't do a whole lot if somebody has all power and they're trying to save the world, but they're doing damage at the same time. So I don't, but I do think
it's more complicated. Yeah, absolutely. Now let me ask you this, because obviously, Richard, you're a comic book person. So New World Order, that's going to be Falcon is the new Captain America?
Yeah, it's a new concept too.
Or we bringing back Steve Rogers?
Yeah, no, the Falcon is, but the debate is,
okay, so that will be very interesting.
Well, the debate is, will he take the super soldier serum?
Will he take up the shield? Yeah,
because his uniqueness has been he can do all this stuff without having super soldier serum. So it's going to be a really good a development. But back to the discussion, global responsibility, you can connect that to things like the Middle Passage, and how Black folk, were just, diving in the ocean so that they wouldn't be enslaved, and what that does to our relationship to water, just it's even the environment, the exploitation of the resources in Africa, and how Haiti is treated historically. So it's another conversation, really. It is about globalization and responsibility, and yeah. So I'm gonna stop right there because I can talk for a long time.
Well, that's okay. We want to hear your voice, Richard. Really interesting comments, and also bringing into it, because that history of the comic books. I don't purport to be a comic book expert. I have enjoyed these movies, but you bring that other context to it. So thank you for sharing. Katie, please contribute.
I just want to say that I'm not a comic book expert. I just am Jane average moviegoer. So this has been really helpful to unpack a lot of the layers of this movie. It's really eye-opening for me because I don't think I would have, I'm watching the movie because, and I'm engaged in the story, but I'm not thinking like a writer or a critic. I'm not unpacking it and taking it apart and thinking about the role of the United Nations and the United States and weapons of war. So thank you to everybody here who is helping me to see deeper into the film.
What did
That's
you think of the film? Did you enjoy it, Katie?
I
Oh,
did.
and
I
James,
was,
just one moment. Let me just.
okay. I was fully engaged. I had one question, but really it's not related to the plot necessarily. The scene where Shuri has met with this other, the winged,
Namor,
wing-footed god, and he says nobody has ever been to their world before. And yet they very conveniently had this suit that would keep her safe. And I just wondered about the plausibility of that as a plot device. Like if nobody really has ever been there, why would they have this very high-tech suit just waiting for her to use it?
Oh, please.
The
I'm sorry,
suit-
James, just 1 second. Please, if you have an answer to this question, but then James, we're getting right to you.
Yeah, the suit came from the two people who were underwater in the very beginning of the movie. And so the people from Talokan saved those suits,
Okay,
the diving suits.
okay. Then that helps because I couldn't figure out, well, if nobody's been there, why would they have these suits?
Mhm.
It's worth watching it again
Mhm.
to see and doing some reading.
James, please. I'm sorry you had to wait so long, please.
No problem.
Oh, James, have you cut off?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, now I can.
Okay. So yeah, speaking of global responsibility, the United Nations, we know there's the scene in there about vibranium. And when in the first Black Panther movie, it comes up that if we expose ourselves to the world, they're going to want our natural resource. And I feel like it parallels today's experience that is still going on with Africa and their natural resources. In fact, the United States signing this exclusive deal for cobalt in Africa recently in the last month or so. Joe Biden signed that deal, in order to beat China to the punch, getting this resource for computers and electronics and phones and stuff. And so in the story, it's a very real, relatable experience that we have this resource that people are going to want to come for. The world is going to want to come for. How do we protect it and protect ourselves? And yeah, I just thought that was a great way to bring up what it is to be, a global citizen.
Absolutely. And I mean, you can see so many parallels or so many real world examples, but this idea of seeing countries, seeing continents, seeing people as natural resources to be exploited. And then in the first movie, the tension between Killmonger and T'Challa, okay, are we going to be isolationist? Or are we going to be global? I thought that was really, I don't know, kind of a heartbreaking decision, choice, because we don't have examples of cultures, people of color, countries where people of color are the dominant group that haven't been colonized. So it's like, well, why would we raise our cloak? But at the same time, we live in the world. So I just thought that was a really interesting way that they got at a real world problem in a superhero movie in the first film. And then in this film, the whole UN sequence and Queen Ramonda, like as she's speaking, they are breaking in and trying to steal vibranium. So I do think that the film takes these issues seriously. They don't offer answers. There are not a lot of easy answers out there, but I really did respect that about this film in particular. Thanks, James, for waiting to make your comment, and I do really appreciate, the perspective that you're bringing, especially, I mean, it's so funny. It's like, well, in Ant-Man, can you really see a lot of real world, comps? Maybe really not so much, but in this movie, you already brought up some real world international relations, treaties that Joe Biden has signed, and these are issues that we're really grappling with, and they are real. And America is not always, I know we always like to think that we are exceptional and correct in everything that we do, but there is some historical context that we need to take into account. And I'm just impressed, even though I don't think Black Panther Wakanda Forever is a perfect film. I am very impressed at the issues and the themes that it tries to grapple with. I'm wondering if anybody has any comments they might want to make about either the most memorable part of the film for them, or the thing that really drew them, if there was something that really drew you into the story, or something that kind of kept you at a distance from the story. Like I said, I'm a movie fan, and I've seen tons of movies, and I can tell you, well, I love this performance, but in general, XYZ about the story didn't really engage me, or this is what I thought was strong, this is what I thought was weak. I'm not asking, did you think the movie was good, or did you think the movie was bad? But if there was something that really drew you in, maybe you'd want to share about it. Or if there was something that really put you off, or kind of, I don't know, left you cold, maybe you want to share about it. Anybody?
I'll jump in.
Please.
Queen Ramonda character performed by Angela Bassett, that was some of the best acting I feel like I've ever seen
So
on screen.
powerful.
Yeah. So I know she's nominated for an Oscar. I know she won the Critics' Choice Award recently for that role. It was just, flooring to watch that performance.
I agree. And she really, I mean, it's an interesting thing that I'm sure some of you have experienced where, well, as the professor was saying, this idea of Black excellence as a baseline is not always something you encounter. I would say in my experience, that's not always something that's expected. Many times people will be very impressed that you're articulate, or quite impressed with your bearing, or very taken with your grasp on an issue. And whenever I saw Queen Ramonda on the screen, I was like, she's got it. There's no like, oh, how surprising. This queen actually knows what she's talking about, or she knows how to rule her country, or she knows the issues, or she has a complex mind, and she can express herself. And she has her, oratorical skills, that UN scene was a knockout for me. But certainly throughout the film, Angela Bassett's performance was so moving and I don't know, completely credible. Like I just believed her. And I do hope, I think she did win a Golden Globe. I do hope that she's honored at the Academy Awards. She was not, I mean, she was nominated for What's Love Got to Do with It, which, that's a complicated role. Also, we're not going to get into that, but she's a tremendous actor. And I do hope that she continues to get accolades and honors for her performance. Richard, please.
Sure. I would like to just comment on a scene that moved me, and I want to ask if Dr. Stewart can elaborate her first thoughts about what I'm going to mention. In the scene toward the end, our female Black Panther had the opportunity to kill Namor, to kill him, and her mom, Angela Bassett.
Just a moment, just a moment, Richard. I don't mean to interrupt, but for those who haven't seen the movie, if you want to maybe, I don't know, get a glass of water, come back. There might be some spoilers in this aspect of this discussion, but of course, I don't want you to leave. It's just if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want spoilers, some things might be revealed in this aspect of the discussion. Please go ahead, Richard. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So our female Black Panther had a chance to kill Namor. She was in her right to do it. And her mom, Angela Bassett, had appeared to her and said, we're bigger than this. We're more than this right here. So Dr. Stewart, can you elaborate on how the meaning of Wakanda Forever was expanded when our female Black Panther had the chance to kill the enemy?
Well, I think so. Wakanda Forever is that loyalty, but it's also the quality of the way that they live, the values that they hold, and that's why you see the Dora Milaje willing to give their lives. And in the first movie, when she's fighting with Killmonger, right before he slices her throat, the last thing the Dora Milaje says is Wakanda Forever, and she knows she's about to die. And so it's that type of solid loyalty to not only the homeland, but to the values that homeland represents. And I think coupled with that, this family and the values that they represent. And I think that the Queen was reminding her daughter that we haven't fought this hard and come this far for you to just now say, I'm angry, let me just toss all of that out the window. But keeping in mind that Shuri is the youngest of all of these great people that we're talking about. And so she, it's been 5 years? So she was just a child when the first one happened, a teenager, if you will. And so she's kind of growing into these things and but she's dealing with the death, right, of her family. And so something had to hold her down. There had to be something that rooted her back into this idea of Wakanda Forever. And I think her mother's trying to remind her, not only are you a part of this family and this is what we represent, you're part of this country and this is what we represent, but your actions will influence the future of this nation. And what you do right now will affect everyone that has been under your purview for the last few months or years or whatever the case may be. And so that's what I think. It's just there was a strength there, both in family, in values, but all of that rooted in that homeland because they represented something that was unlike other countries, that was unlike other territories. And to have that type of uniqueness, I think is what the Queen was trying to remind her, even though she's human, that she's being called to live above that humanity. Also, since I'm talking now, I would like to comment also on when you're talking about Angela Bassett. Now, I've seen Black Panther, the first one, probably 50, 60 times. I've only seen the second one once. And so there's a lot. I've got to go back and watch it again, because I know there are things that you'll catch the second and third time. Like I think Katie was mentioning, she had the question about the suits. And so I didn't have an answer for that either. So I was going to have to go back and watch and try to figure that out. Thank you, Derek, for giving that answer. So I need to watch it because I know there are things that I'm going to see. But part of the reason I know I missed some things is because I was captivated by the beauty of Angela Bassett. When I think about royalty and regalness, this is what I saw on the screen. It was, to me, regal personified. And we talk about royalty and what a queen should be and how she should carry herself, and then how she represents a country. And when people say this is the queen, to me, that's what that was. And just being a movie fan with the costume design and the headgear, all of it, it made it so that you couldn't look away. And I'm so busy focusing on, her earrings, and then she's got the shoulder strap and all of that I might have missed a line or two of something that someone said, because there were so many just things that caught my eye visually that I know I've got to go back and watch it again and again.
Absolutely. Visually, I think both films are like a feast, really a feast for the eye. The attention to detail, the attention to the different costumes, the idea that Wakanda is a country, but not everybody's the same. There are different groups in Wakanda. There are different tribes in Wakanda. There are different, cultural, spiritual foci in Wakanda. And I think the costumes and the architecture, that world building, really does make you believe it. It's not just people saying, oh, in Wakanda, we have the bear tribe, and we have the this, and we have the that, and we have, Dora Milaje, we have all these things. It's not telling you, it's showing you, and you believe it because of the level of intention and detail. And, I was just, in both films, I would say, set design, art direction, costumes, second to none. I mean, really, really achievements in those areas of film that don't always get as much attention as the director or the star or the, movie studio. But that's what makes you believe in the world. That's part of what makes you believe what you're seeing. And I think in particular, because it's a majority Black cast, because it's about people of color, that's super important. They're not just telling you, but showing you, I think is really powerful. So that's what I'll say about that. I'm hoping that anybody that hasn't had a chance to share their feeling about either the first movie or the second movie, if you'd like to just give a quick comment on one of the films, it would be great. I mean, I'm really pleased that people have been, feeling comfortable enough to share questions, opinions, feelings. Please share a thought if you'd like. I really encourage everybody to just say what they thought. Would you think the movie? Maybe I didn't really like it. I have friends that were like, yeah, whatever, it was okay. Please.
Well, I guess one thing I'm noticing, and especially in this discussion, is when you talk about intentionality, it seems that there is quite a bit of intentionality and the I don't know if it's just great writers who were writing the script for both Black Panther movies, but this one in particular, because when I think about other superhero movies, I don't see the kind of depth or the kind of layered political statements that are being made in, say, Ant-Man, to use an example that was brought up, or any of the other films. And is that because the filmmakers thought there would be a higher standard applied to them or this particular topic? Or what do you think the intention was behind that?
It's a super interesting question, Katie. Thank you for raising it. I think that it's kind of a combination. I mean, I'll have to say, even though maybe it seemed riskier, in my opinion, for Ryan Coogler making the first movie, because it had not been done before, because he had not worked on that scale before. Obviously, very talented filmmaker. He had made films before, but not at that budget, not with those kinds of logistics of this kind of VFX heavy kind of franchise, responsible for franchise kind of projects before. So maybe in the first movie, even more stakes and pressure. But I would still say in this movie, this idea that, dang, you got the budget, you're doing all this stuff, it better be excellent. I do think there's an element of that. Maybe I think that's getting a little bit to your question, Katie. If I'm not responding, maybe you can frame it again. I'll try to respond more directly, but I do think intentionality, it has to be part of your mission as an artist. But I do think that there's also an extra layer of expectation and stakes, because culturally and racially, this just doesn't happen every week.
Yeah.
Richard, did you have a comment? Richard?
Yes, one thing that's helped me understand the intentionality of a film is just to listen to the director talk about why they made it. So, for example, when Bryan Singer did the first X-Men movie, he said up front, I want Magneto to kind of be like a Malcolm X type, violence. And I want Professor X to be like a nonviolent Dr. King symbol, okay? When Chris Nolan did Batman Begins, they said, we want the Batman character to be like an addiction, addicted to anger, addicted to the Batman suit. When Zack Snyder did Superman, he said, we're going to make him relatable, the first immigrant. So when Coogler had on his shoulders the first Black superhero since Blade, since Snipes played Blade, which, by the way, made Marvel films believable. It was Snipes' portrayal of Blade, not
Richard,
X-Men.
I can't hear you. Can you say that again? Blade made Marvel films what?
Blade made Marvel films believable. Even Stan Lee acknowledged that. So anyway, when Coogler did Black Panther, he was carrying with him not just another Black superhero, but what he symbolized, a Black cast, Black excellence. When he picked out a villain, Killmonger, a second-tier villain, an unknown villain, but he made him so complicated. The Du Bois, Booker T, Malcolm X, King, all rolled up into one. A Black Panther, Huey P. Newton, all rolled up into one. All those layers.
Agreed.
And so I just applaud him taking the superhero, but the villain to the next level. Because in the past, villains have been like, you root for them, no, you hate them. I mean, like a Robert De Niro, a Al Pacino in a gangster film, you're rooting for them, okay? But when he did Killmonger, he was so complicated that you don't want him to see him die. You want him to live.
You didn't know
And so,
I didn't know who to root for. I didn't know who to root
exactly.
for. I was like, well,
Yeah.
can't they both
Yes.
do it?
So
I don't know. How would that work? But he was such a complex character. I really did appreciate that about the first movie. And I was sorry. I mean, the villain, quote unquote, in this movie is very different than Killmonger. But I really missed Killmonger, I have to tell you. I'm sorry, Richard, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh,
I got
was gonna
overtaken with emotion.
I was going to close by saying that it was, in my opinion, Killmonger that raised the standard for Marvel's portrayal of villains, because they tried to do that with Thanos. Didn't work a whole lot, but Killmonger raised the standard for how you develop a multi-layered villain. That's all I want to say.
Please, thank you, Richard. Thank you. Please, Mr. Green, please let us know what you're thinking.
There we go. So my thoughts going back to the intentionality. One, I just want to say, although I never met Chadwick Boseman as a graduate of Howard University with a PhD from that institution, as he graduated in 2000 with his undergraduate degree, I graduated in 2000 with my PhD. And so we were sitting on the same lawn at the same time. And so it would have been nice to have known that I was in the presence of Chadwick at that time. But I wanted to say two things. One, to echo something that Dr. Stewart said a little earlier in terms of coming together and how Black Panther brings us together. And I guess it's because I've been working on one of my lectures for my class this week, where I'm talking about Elihu Katz's uses and gratifications theory, and where he inspired Alan Rubin to do a typology of what are some of the reasons as to why we use television. But of course, you can expand that into other areas. And one of them being companionship, which Rubin says it helps to bring people into a common space in order to share a common experience. And I think that, you know, not only does the movie do that for everyone, but in that time of wanting to be in the same space in order to grieve together and to breathe together, I think that, and especially, you know, after post-COVID, I think that Wakanda Forever did that. As Alan Rubin would say. Alan Rubin also gives us this concept of parasocial relationships, kind of to go back to what Richard May was just saying in terms of, and what Katie was saying in terms of this intentionality. Certainly Ryan Coogler, as a Black man, understood the importance of having a character, a person of color, a man of color, as that person that other Black people are, and especially boys, as well as grown men, could identify with. I remember growing up in the 70s, and where I would put the towel around me with the clothespin, and I was Batman if it was the long way, I was Superman if it was the shorter way. And it really wasn't until I was in graduate school at Howard that Static Shock came out. You know, I knew who Black Vulcan was on the Super Friends in the 70s. And I knew, but I wasn't intellectual enough to be able to figure out why is it that every time Black Vulcan, Apache Chief, and Samurai are on the show, there are always these three characters of color there together, and then that you don't see them for a long while. So I really didn't know what a Black superhero was until Static Shock in the 90s. And I really came to love him. And so I applaud Ryan Coogler for putting Black Panther before us. I think about the controversy when Miles Morales and the universe that he was in, where Peter Parker, Spider-Man died, and Miles Morales became the Spider-Man, and how the Twitterverse was in an uproar that a person of color dare take the place of Peter Parker. But I really need for those who are in dominant spaces to understand that when we talk about these parasocial relationships, like Ruben talks about, we need someone to identify with. We need someone to emulate. We need someone who is before us to show us that, oh, we can achieve, we can do more, we can be better, we can. And so that, I guess that's really one of the things that I take away from the movie.
Thank you so much for those comments. Absolutely. And I have to say, your comments about, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, also super powerful film, animated film that many people might not have seen because of that reason. But it kind of shows, I mean, there were a lot of spider people. And just because Marvel, or I don't know who owns, is it Sony, is it Marvel, all Spider-Man, X-Men, who owns which thing, there haven't been as many adaptations of all of the different versions. I just think it's so interesting when people get up in arms thinking that there's only one version of everything that matters, and it looks like this. It's still very hard for me to understand or empathize with that. It's like, well, you know what? You need to open up your mind a little bit more. And in fact, I'm not even a comic book person, but I know there's 70 million versions of a lot of things in comic books. And comic books are crazy. People die, they come back as an alien, they decide they're going to live on the moon, they turn blue, all kinds of crazy things. So why is it so crazy to envision other kinds of entities and beings and power and ability? Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in comic books, but Black people can't have power? That's really insane to me. I'm not going to go off, but it's just interesting. Thank you so much, Mr. Green, for those comments. I'm hoping that somebody else that hasn't spoken might want to share their thoughts with the group. Thank you, everybody who has been in the chat. That's awesome. But if we'd like to say something to the group, whether you saw the movie or not, whether you want to talk about the first movie or the second movie. I think this has been a really interesting discussion. I've learned a lot. I've really enjoyed talking about it with people, because even though I did see it last month, haven't talked about it with a lot of people. So I just want to thank you all for that. But please, if anybody has another comment they'd like to make, I would really encourage you. Anybody? Oh, Janine, were you asking me specifically
That's
why I
actually
wanted to have this discussion?
Katie and I
Janine?
have the same, it looks like we're the same person, but she asked that. Katie wondered about what drew people to this discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please. If anybody would like to share why they wanted to come to the discussion today, that would be great. I'd love to know why anybody wanted to be part of it. I just like talking about movies, so I thought it would be fun. I suggested it to Katie, and she said, "Yeah, sure, let's do it. It's a big movie. It's coming out. Let's do it." Why? Some folks I really don't know. I'm just wondering, did you hear about it just on the Inlandia website? What drew you to the discussion today?
Well, I was invited by Richard May. So he
Yay,
said
Richard.
we had talked a little bit about the book that I mentioned, why Wakanda Matters, and some other things. And so he thought I might be interested. And he was absolutely right. I love talking about Black Panther, and just actually presented at a conference back in November about Black Panther. And so I assume I'm going to probably continue some work in that area. Like I said, I'm going to go and see the movie again and again and see if I'm motivated to write something else. And then I invited my colleague, Dr. Green, because we write together and present together on some things. And
Oh,
he's a comic
I'm
book.
so glad you did. Richard had sent me a clip
Mhm.
about the book, and I just couldn't get it in time. So I'm looking forward to reading it, and I will be following you because I just think it's an important topic, and I definitely want to follow your work. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. I
And
had to
Richard,
invite Dr. Green because he's the comic
always
book
the
guru. So he
okay,
answers all
well,
my
as we could
questions.
see, you could answer those
Hmm.
questions. Absolutely. Thank you so much for stepping in, because I certainly am not a comic book guru. Maybe a passing interest in some of the arcana of these superheroes. I enjoy the movies to some extent, but I can't say that I grew up reading all comics. So I'm glad somebody was here that had that knowledge, Dr. Green. Thank you. Anybody else want to share, why they decided to join the discussion? I'm really pleased that so many people did. Anybody else? Well, I don't know how many of you all are writers, but I was wondering if we might just do like a really brief, like a little break, maybe take a 5-minute break. And if anybody wants to maybe use one of the themes that we've been talking about to write a little something. Some of you are poets. Maybe you could do a little speed poetry, or a little what do they call that, microfiction, or just a comment. I think it'd be a good idea for us to take like a 5-minute break. If somebody wants to get a glass of water, maybe just stretch their legs. And when we come back, just some final thoughts, maybe. Okay?
That sounds good.
So it looks to me like it is 2:39. So at about 2:40, I'll be back. I'm going to turn my camera off just for about 5 minutes. We'll come back and then have some final thoughts. Thank you all.
This discussion is awesome. I'm so glad everybody came. I'm just jazzed up completely.
Yeah, Richard, it's pretty cool. Thank you for inviting your friends to come too.
Sure, sure.
It's pretty cool.
Is anybody here from my classes at all? I want to, because I invited a couple of folks from my class. Anybody here at all? Isabella, thank you. Okay, what class are you from? Anna? Okay. Wonderful. Good, good, good. I'm glad you're able to come down and earn the extra credit. Right. Thank you, Miriam. All right. Awesome. Right. Jamie, thank you also. All right. All right. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Isabella. Okay.
Richard, can you talk a little bit about your event next week?
Yeah, it's going to be how to draw the selfie portrait, because I'm a also a trained artist. I have an art show coming up at the Temecula Valley Museum, March through April. And I'm gonna show folks how to draw a self-portrait. Yeah, pretty
Okay,
much.
Cool. What time is that, and where is it gonna be?
I think it's 1 until 4 o'clock, I believe, next Sunday. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes, I have a confession. You guys have events that are exactly the same time as each other in different places.
Okay.
And that sucks because we're trying to figure out how to make it work. Everybody wants programming, our major partners, on first Sundays, which is obviously the first Sunday of the month. So we've got a first Sunday program at UCR Arts with James and Black Dads Who Write, which is awesome. And I think we start that at 1:30. And then we've got Richard's workshop at the Art Museum, not too far. I mean, you could run back and forth if you wanted to, but it would be not fun. And that's from 1 to 3. I was going to talk about this at the very end, but I've got, let's see. Here is the graphic for Richard's. If I can see it. So this is in person. And I hope that and it's free and open to the public. We are asking for a materials fee, but obviously not required. And Richard, you and I need to talk about materials.
Sure.
So we'll have to talk this
Exactly,
week. And I understand we'll also be writing a poem as part of this.
Yes.
And then we've got, and this will be live streamed because that is the plan. James's event over at the Culver Center with Eric Devon, aka True, George Hammonds, and Brandon Allen in conversation with James. So about writing and fatherhood. So I'm sorry to both of you, James, because I sense your disappointment that.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, what? Selfies? Drawing? Oh.
Oh, no. Too much happening at once.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, we also have a puppet show going on downstairs at the Art Museum too. So, but that's for kids mostly, different audience.
Mhm.
We'll make it work. So who wrote a poem?
I mean, I know that was a tall task, a big ask, but I was like, what? They're writers here. Maybe they want to write something, but maybe just some final thoughts. If anybody would like to share final thought. I'm really, I'm so pleased that so many people came today to this talk, gave me an opportunity to talk about a film that really moved me and gave me a lot of food for thought. So thank you all for being here and engaging in the discussion. But if anybody has any final thoughts before we close, I would really encourage you to share. Anybody? Anybody?
I have a poem that made
Oh
it
my
into
goodness, please.
in my book
Okay.
that just came out. Let me see if I can find it.
And
It is
the name of your book? Come on,
it
do a
is
proper plug.
it is Midnight and Mad Dreams.
Thank you.
Published with World Stage Press out of Leimert Park. Let me see. Okay, I found it. So this was a poem written after watching the first Black Panther and then being inspired by it, and then after Chadwick's passing. It's titled A Hero's Journey. Not all heroes wear capes. Sometimes they wear masks, a smile that hides the truth of what they're going through, to spare us the pain they're feeling, so as to not pass it down. If that's not love, I don't know what is. Sometimes the heart they wear on their sleeve is bravery, and the weapon they choose to face the evils of this world with is kindness. It often feels like our heroes we deserve never get enough time. Only small windows, moments for us to step through and witness the miracle of purpose and manifestation. This lasting gift, courage even in the face of unspeakable odds. They valiantly press on, battling with dignity and resolve the ultimate villain, death's grip. What a hero wears is more than clothes, it's character, a symbol of how they choose to live and whom they fight to protect, so that the future may be better than the present. We are not fated forever, but can do much with the time we are given. You gave us everything you had, sacrificed silently through all the bad to unlock a place in our imagination, to deliver a vision of possibility, a picture of tenacity and regal grace. You brought our heroes to life, our truth, our stories, our voices, all while not knowing how soon you will become one of these great ancestors. Perhaps it was meant for them to speak to us through you, a modern example of alchemy, how to pull gold from sand, that is to say, greatness from man. He who is a king need not act because he behaves as such. You earned your crown through service, through community, your faith in the mission to leave it all on the screen, which means we will always have a part of you in the light of every joyful face beaming. It cannot be overstated. There is value in the treasure we hold inside once realized, a royal image of strength and resilience. I like to think you knew what you meant to every little boy who held your toy and looked up to you, and even us grown men too. I wish we could have given you your flowers before the final curtain. Though your body may be gone, I'm certain your inspiration lives on. When I look in my child's eyes, your legacy comes into clear view, that no matter the challenges we face, we can choose to be heroes too.
Mm.
Right. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, James. That was really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that and letting us know about your book. I think that's a wonderful note to end on, unless anybody else wants to add a final thought. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I really, really appreciate everybody's comments. Yeah, take James's words with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you next week, either at Richard's or James's events.
Or both.
Or both. If you
Wear
can
roller
time
skates.
travel.
You can do them all.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.